Okay, so hello to everybody. In my online macroeconomics class, we're going to be doing a review today for chapters 6 through 9 for our test that we are having next Tuesday. And I just wanted to try and experiment here with recording the review again in a different way. And so I know that you won't be able to see things in detail on the screen, but you can follow along by page and get an idea of what I'm talking about. And I may be asking some questions here of students in class and that, and but just hang in there, okay? So we are going to be talking first about chapter 6, okay? And chapter 6 deals with what? If you guys are all with me. We talked about the macroeconomic perspective. What does that mean? We're shifting from looking at just the micro and the macro aspects that are all the same, like the early information. You know, what is economics? It's the scarcity due to limited resources and things like that. And economics overall is about people's what? The needs, the wants, and the choices that we make, right? Yeah, so the choices that we make based upon our limited resources. So that's common between micro and macro. Then we looked at like budget constraints, looking at on an individual basis, and I know you won't be able to see very well on the board, but I can send out a picture of what I have on the board. But a budget constraint would be 2 items. We can isolate 2 items, which in reality, we've got so many more things that we have to choose between, but we can isolate that. And just a quick review, that line is a line of efficiency, right? Okay, so if we are anywhere along that line between those 2 items, we are using our resources efficiently. Inside, we are inefficient, and outside it is impossible, because this is the most resources that we have available. Morning. And so if we're operating inside of the line, it means we're not using our resources as efficiently as we could be using to get more utility, okay? So on our budget constraint. So that was part of like chapter 2. We also talked about on the societal level, okay? Again, we have our line of efficiency on our PPF. What's the PPF?
Possibility.
Yeah, the production possibilities function. Okay, or frontier. So this would be at the societal level. That's why it's curved and it's not just a straight line. These are exact things that we know, the price and the quantities. These are things that we are estimating and trying to see what is most efficient. Like, remember education and healthcare, okay? It's very hard to exactly measure it. But along this line would be efficient, inside again would be inefficient, outside is impossible. Yeah, because we can't go outside of that. Okay, then we were talking about supply and demand, and anytime we have our 2 curves, which, here, I'll just do it down here. We've got our demand curve, we've got our supply curve, and then we've got, when we put them together, we've got demand, we've got supply. What do we call that point right there where they cross? What'd you say? Equilibrium. So we can find out where our equilibrium quantity is and our equilibrium price. And at the time it seemed pretty hard, but right now as we're getting into more depth, that's pretty simple now, right? When we think about it. What do we call it when it changes, like the price changes and it affects the quantity demanded? Okay, like we go from, here's P1, and we go to P2, let's say. We can put that down to our quantity, and we see a change along the line. What do we call that? when we have a change along the line. That would be a change in quantity demanded, right? Okay, and then if we have another situation where we have our demand curve, but for some reason the whole curve moves over. This is D1 and D2. What do we call that?
The shift.
A shift in demand. And how is that different than just a change in the price?
The shift to the right, so it increases.
Yeah, it increases at all prices, right? Because something has changed. What would change demand?
Probably like people buying it.
So their preferences, right?
Yeah.
And how do people have more money? They have an increase in their, yeah, their work hours, their income, right? Yeah, so they might have a change in income so that they can buy more at all prices, right? So I just wanted to review that. We're just doing a quick review here and just things that pop into my head. Okay, so then we talked about like the labor supply. We talked about this circular flow model, right? How we have to keep everything in balance and everything going. Otherwise, our economy starts struggling. Like firms are needing people to work at their firm in order to produce their product or service, right? So that employs the people. People need money in order to buy those products, right? So they're willing to work if they're willing and able, right? Okay, and that keeps our labor market on the inside going because firms need people to produce their product, households need the income, it all works together. If firms don't have employees, can they make their product or their service? No. And if our economy starts going down and it's not as healthy, it can start spiraling because if firms aren't selling enough, there's not enough demand for their product or service, then they can't employ as many people. They may lay people off. Those people who no longer have a job then cannot spend as much and buy as much from the firms, and it just keeps spiraling, okay? So that circular flow model from chapter, I think it might have been the first chapter, is very, very important to our economy, okay? So does that all kind of review a little bit? I guess we can't forget chapter 5. Chapter 5 was about elasticity, right? If you think of that Stretch Armstrong, was that in the video we saw in here or micro? I can't remember, but elasticity is whether the demand for a product is elastic or inelastic. So if the company raises the price, will we see a change in the demand? Or will we not? Or to what extent, right?
We see a change in the demand to a certain extent.
If it's elastic, right? If it's elastic, that means that we will go ahead and keep buying the product. Excuse me, backwards. If it's inelastic, it would be a necessity that we would need, and even if the price goes up, we still might need to buy it, right? Think about milk. That's like the economic example over the years. Because they would say everybody needs milk. Well, now there's substitute items, but let's say it's milk. We've all got to have milk. So even if the price goes up to $4 a gallon, are people still going to buy milk? Yeah, because they need it for their food supply. Those things that are not necessities, basically, if the price goes up, we can say, yeah, we're not gonna buy it, right? So then it would be more elastic. We may switch to a substitute product or something like that, okay? So that is basically leading up to where we diverge between micro and macro. Okay.